Okay, we're going to talk about automatic waterers. So I've got my automatic watering system here. So I've got my 5-gallon bucket, which in the top of it has this thing coming out here, which has got a quick connect on it, which connects to my hose. And I've got a quick connect piece here on the end. It just clips right in to that piece there, and I can fill my 5-gallon bucket and not have to pull it down. It does make it very, very slick. So on some of my buckets I have to disconnect because I haven't done it. On my other ones I've really kind of gone out and made my life a little easier, and I've done several of these. So like this one here comes over and feeds this Y here, and then feeds that 5-gallon bucket and that 5-gallon bucket, so I don't actually have to disconnect this. So I can stand here, fill that 5-gallon bucket. Helps if I turn it on, huh? So I can fill that 5-gallon bucket, then fill that 5-gallon bucket. That one's actually all the way to the top, so it's overflowing. But I can fill and then like this bucket here, I've got the line strapped over and everything comes down to this junction right here, and same with this bucket, it comes to this junction right here. This line here comes down and feeds into my Y, and if I have to fill like my watering dishes, then I've got this little end I just got. Makes it really easy to fill my water dishes that way. So that's my reservoirs. Okay, I showed you my buckets up in place, and here's my bucket. I've got all my other buckets are up into place, and so this is the only one that I had down. This is one of my first generation buckets, so I didn't do the best on this bucket. I slowly got better, but here on the front, so you can order these little barbed pieces. I'll show you here. It's just a barbed fitting. It's 5 16" inside diameter. You can see the specs on it right there. But it's just threaded on the bottom end and barbed on the end. So it's barbed for the hose piece here, and then threaded for the piece in here. And on this one, I've done a nut down in here. It's just like a standard stainless steel, like galvanized nut. And I've gone away from that because I didn't want that stuff getting in my water. And so what I've done is I just went to a piping store and just got this little 1/4" threaded piece of plastic. Let me see if I've got one that's actually open. Here, I'll just open this one really quick. Okay, so then let's get this into focus. So then I've got this barbed in piece of plastic, so then I just screw it in like so. So then your bucket would be right in here in this piece, and then I just make pieces of washer for this front piece. And then I actually got washers, the new buckets now, I just got little washers, so I put a washer and then put a rubber seal in between the washer and the bucket, so it goes the barb piece, washer, rubber seal, bucket, rubber seal, washer, plastic piece on my newer buckets, and it does really, really good. Like I've got this rubber seal here and then this rubber seal here. I've actually got 2 rubber seals. And then on my new buckets, on this rubber seal, I've actually been putting silicone around them, and it does really, really good. Let me see if I can dig everything out really quick for you. I don't know what I do with my washers, but my rubber seals, I've looked and looked and looked for rubber seals that would go around this, and so I just cut my own here. And you can just get this rubber seal. When I went to the plumbing store, I went to a plumbing store and got these things, and they've got this rubber stuff that you can just make washers and stuff out of. And I just use a pair of scissors and I just trace it. I just set this thing down like that, and I trace the piece here on the end. So I just set this piece here down on there, and I just trace around it. So I cut my center piece, and then I do like a 1/4" or 1/2" like little circle around it. So that gives me, so it's about an inch tall piece. And then my new buckets, I've been siliconing around the inside, and it does really, really good, and it seals them. Because the main thing is you don't want this thing leaking on the inside or outside. But this little threaded piece is really nice because I can crank it on there and I can crank it on this and I can really tighten it down and I can really get a good seal, so I don't have to do a whole lot with these little two pieces. So it's a really nice way to do it. I'm sure there's a better way, but that's just how I've been doing it, and I've had really good luck with it, and my buckets haven't been leaking. Okay, on my top of my bucket, on this one, you can see how my hose just fell out right there. So on my newer buckets, I haven't done it to this bucket yet. The part of the reason is because it's down, because the lid cracked. The other thing with my buckets is you can see this one, it's sun faded. You can see everything's totally different colors. So I've been covering my buckets up partially because that the buckets corrode out and they crack and they break, and then the algae builds up in them if they're out in the sun. So I've actually been covering all my buckets up, building like little shelter things for them. Well, my watering system, my automatic watering system reservoirs, I guess, whatever you want to call them, but they're my buckets. But so here on the top, I drilled the hole, and then I shoved and this tubing I just get from Home Depot. I think it's 7/8 outside diameter and 3/4 inside. It's just standard hose diameters. You can see here that this is just a standard garden hose end, and I just put a quick connect in it and then just cinched it down so it's sealed. But yeah, this tubing, you can get it in like 10-foot sections, and I get the same tubing. So this is my automatic watering system, so it's 5/16 inside diameter, and it's your automatic watering system size. And you can order these nipples offline, so I just get this tubing from Home Depot, order the nipples offline, and then I get everything else from Home Depot. But I think it's 3/4 inside diameter and 7/8 outside diameter. I can't remember. I haven't used any of this stuff in a while, so I can't remember, but I think that's what it is. But on the hose, if I go to Home Depot, then I know what I'm looking for. I know it's like 7/8, but if you just grab like a garden hose end, like this is just a standard barbed garden hose end size. So what I do now on my new buckets is this threaded part is I drill a hole big enough for this threaded part, and it just goes down in the bucket. And then I got another one of these things that just threads on the bottom of it. So it just threads on the bottom of it to keep this brass piece in place. And then my garden hose goes into that. And these little elbows I got offline. You can get them off Amazon, online, eBay, wherever. I just got them offline. But they're just a little garden hose. So then that just threads down in the bucket like so. And then you just thread that little plastic piece in the top, and it keeps your hose from coming out. On some of my buckets, what I did with this hose is 7/8, so I was drilling like a 5/8 hole, and then I would just pinch the hose down in there and just wedge it in there, and that worked. I mean, the hose would stay in there. It's a cheap way to do it, but what it does is it causes a kink like in your hose, because it kinks your hose like that, and so the hose stays in there, but then the water takes a little bit longer to fill up your bucket. So if you don't have a problem with that, then it's great. But yeah, that's my bucket. Let me show you my nipple system a little bit better. So here on my top cage, I've got my bucket, and then the line comes out, goes across the cage, and comes down, just kind of loops around, and I've got it teed right here. And then it actually goes back up. Because I've got my water higher than everything, then I can get away with this. So as long as your main source is above everything, then you can do a lot with this stuff. So I come along the bottom of the cage, and then I go up to it, and then go along the bottom of the cage, and then go up to the next cage. But then down here I've got my first Y, and I go down. This stuff is really slick to put together. I've kind of stopped doing it. I mean, it makes for a really quick watering. So when I come in here and I water all these cages, I've got 48 cages in here total, and I've got all these reservoirs up here at the top. So I got one there, and I did individual reservoirs. I did do a big one. You can see my big 55-gallon one here that I've done. The problem with that that I ran into is the rabbits would chew a hole so I'd have one rabbit like chew a hole. I've tried to make it so they couldn't get to it, but every now and then I get one that chews one into it, and then I get a hole, and then say chews it at 12 o'clock at night, so then that 55-gallon drum is just leaking out. So I come here and I got a big old puddle. So what I've done is I've done individual 5-gallon buckets, so if a rabbit does chew a hole, it's not as big of a mess. But I mean, 3 rabbits can't drink 5 gallons of water in one day. So I usually do, rule of thumb, it's three rabbit cages per 5-gallon bucket is what I do, and it works out fantastically. I mean, these 5-gallon buckets last like 3 or 4 days. It's really nice. So if I'm going away on a holiday or something like that, then it is really nice. But you can kind of see here how the algae kind of builds up because the sun was kind of beating on these. I've got them covered now with all this tin, but the sun was beating up on it, kind of building up algae. And I've got scrubbers and things like that to put in there, but it's just a mess. So the only way I've found is just to replace the hose, and I just slowly replace them, but that gets kind of expensive. The nipples wear out. So I mean, as far as like watering it and like using it, it's really, really nice, because you can see here I've just got everything. This is just hooked to my garden hose up to my house, and I've got this little tap here so I can fill up everything. But makes it really nice and really fast to water everything. But these nipples, I have to check them periodically, because if they use them a ton, then the nipples will wear out, or if there's a leak in the system. So I've actually kind of gone back to the watering dishes, just because it's made my life a little easier. But still, I've got this garden hose right here that I've wired into the cage, so it's right here so I can water everything really, really quick. But the automatic watering system, it is really slick and nice, especially during the hot days when they drink all their water in this dish, and then they've got the nipple. So I do both. It just makes them better, because they seem to do a lot better with it. I'll show you on my back cage. So here on my back cage, I've got my buckets, and I've got plywood and stuff. Back when plywood was cheap, I've got plywood covering them. I've got this garden hose here hooked into this switch here that's hooked into my garden hose. And I bought a ton of garden hoses just because I got rabbits everywhere, and it made it really, really nice to water everything. So I can come here and just come, and I can flip it on, and I can fill up these buckets here. Well, it helps if I turn this bottom one on, huh? So I can fill that bucket up. Then once it's filled up, I can fill that bucket up. And I actually have these two buckets here are actually tied together. There's a splice right up here up top that has them hooked together, and they actually feed the whole bottom cage by themselves, because I usually have more rabbits in the bottom just because that's the cooler cage. I usually have, if it's a really hot summer day, I try not to have them in this top cage, because it's just, the sun sets out there above this cornfield and it just beats down on this cage the whole day. And so I've got a piece of tin in the back of that bottom cage, and so it's kind of protected. But this watering system is really nice. I do like the automatic watering system for this cage, just because I usually have anywhere from 10 to like 50 rabbits in each of these bottom cages. I do have dishes in here for them. My rabbits always do better if they just got like open water for them, because they like to splash it on their ears and stuff and cool down. So I do kind of a combo. It doesn't take me very long. If you see here, I put a switch here below this switch, so all I do is just grab this and pull it down, and then I've got this here that I can just fill those dishes up. And I mean, I'm only 5 feet away, so it makes my life really easy having a garden hose right here. I don't have to bucket water or none of that, so I really like that part of it. So